I'm joined on the line by the Wits Radio Academy's Paul McNally. Like every week, we're going to speak about this week's episode of The Science Inside. Now, this week's episode is particularly interesting, especially for those of us in the Western Cape who've experienced serious wildfires. The wildfires have caused about 500 people to be evacuated from their homes. We know that frail care facilities, or patients at frail care facilities in the Western Cape, were also treated for smoke inhalation. Paul, this is a huge issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really wanted to look at it in depth. So I grew up in Cape Town. It's something very close to my heart. And we really wanted to look at the sort of technology around how this has affected everyone.
So you started off very interestingly looking at how fires are tracked from space. I didn't even realize that that was something that was done. Fascinating. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just done by satellite photography and people are looking at photos. They actually have satellites that can scan the whole planet within 90 minutes and bring feedback that will tell you where a fire is according to the UV exposure. So then you just get lists and lists of data that then tell you where a fire has broken out on the planet. And then they use that data to you can get down to just an SMS alert if that's what you want. But then also they've used that same technology to be able to give you a grading. So you can take this app, it's called APHIS, you can download it at the Apple Store. They've had many downloads in the last few weeks from South Africans. And you can use this app to pinpoint a position anywhere on the planet, and it will give you a grade from 0 to 100 about how dangerous and how susceptible that point is to having a fire break out. And I find that absolutely amazing because it uses data like weather, it uses all kinds of different data sets to kind of not just tell you where a fire is broken out, but also predict where a fire could break out.
Is this technology free to use? Can you download it in an app store? Where can you get your hands on it?
Yeah, you can download it at the Apple App Store and at the Android store as well.
Now, Paul, over the weekend, my husband and I took a drive over Kaapstad just to have a look at the damage. And where once you would see proteas and fynbos as far as your eye can see, now there's just almost a desolate landscape of nothing. And you guys had a look at the importance of burning fynbos. So while it is devastating to have lost all of this beautiful plant life to fire, some of the scientists that you spoke to described it as being necessary every couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, that's sort of the thing you always hear at school, isn't it? That idea that, yes, fynbos needs the fire, and then you drive out and see that kind of wasteland, and you cannot believe that's the case. But yeah, fynbos especially needs this fire to regenerate. But the point is, and one of our experts, he spoke about how you should do this more methodically. So the idea is that we shouldn't be having a massive bonfire on the mountain that means that people have to be evacuated. It should actually be more procedural. So he said in about 8 years' time, we should start a sequence of burnings, like once a year, where we split the whole of the peninsula up into, say, 12 sections and burn a section a year. But actually, he was he did not think that this is actually going to happen, because he was sort of, even though the science says, according to him, that this is what you should be doing to prevent this kind of catastrophe, the problem is that no one wants to be held liable. So if someone starts this fire and then it does get out of control and it does burn the whole city to the ground, then they will be held liable. No one wants to take that risk. So it's kind of almost a catch-22, and he doesn't really see it changing in any time soon, which is kind of sad.
Let's have a look at the other side of the spectrum, at the firefighters who are working really hard to keep this fire under control. You know, when the fire broke out, there were immediately about 100 firefighters on the scene, and many of them are volunteer firefighters. So you spoke to some of those volunteer firefighters about what they need.
Yeah, the guys at Volunteer Wildfire Services were amazing. And actually, I spoke to one of their spokespeople there, and he was actually had got his hands dirty and was kind of already loading. He was busy loading equipment onto bakkies as I was speaking to him, and he said a few really interesting things. First of all, for water bombing, there's the idea that because fynbos has got such an oily covering, that when you drop water onto fynbos, it actually doesn't kill the fire totally. It actually just gives you enough time to send people on the ground in to then extinguish the fire properly. And also, there's an idea that you're not driving up to the fire face with these kind of fires that are in forest environments. You have to take a fire hose and take it into an upper mountain. And there's the problem of altitude. Like the idea of pumping water up a hill seems easy enough when it's just a few meters, but when it becomes maybe a kilometer, that becomes very, very difficult. And actually the point that some of these firefighters, even though they're dragging in all their kit and they're actually going to go fight a fire, they also have to hand crank the water to be pumped up to where they can use it, which I found like just another added complication. It's quite amazing.
Absolutely. I think all the firefighters who were on the ground during the last 2 weeks, and even now in Jonkershoek and Stellenbosch, are absolutely incredible. So that's Paul McNally for the WITS Radio Academy. You can let us know what you think about this week's episode in the comments section below. Don't forget, you can listen to the full episode of The Science Inside below this video. Paul, thanks so much, and we'll catch up again next week.
Thanks very much.